Welcome, everybody. You are listening to the Knights of Den podcast, wherever you are, whenever you're listening to this. If you're not listening with us live, we really appreciate you. We're thankful for you, the listener. It's maybe a bit of a dark time to be a Denver Broncos fan, but we're still here. We're still here having fun. And with me, as always, the original Knight of Den. Can I call you that? I mean,
You
that
can.
seems appropriate.
I
Yeah, I
like
think
it.
I will. I will. The original gangster, Knight of Den, Brandon Keckler. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Trying to search out the light in these
I
dark
know.
situations and these dark times, man, and figuring out what we're supposed to put our lightsaber through. And the whole Kylo quote of I sent to you in the gift today. Let
Yep.
let the past die, kill it if you have to. It didn't seem like we killed the past today in ways that a lot of Broncos fans wanted Elway to do so with the firing of Vance Joseph, but
Yep.
seems like he's sparing his life for the time being.
Yeah. And yeah, what were his exact words today? He said, "Stay the
Stay the
course."
course.
Yeah.
Stay the course. So what? First of all, let's start with that. So there's a couple hot topics today. The two hottest
Hmm.
are Vance Joseph not fired, and that he will be around for the near future, at the very least, whatever that means.
Yep. Yep.
And then the DT situation, which we'll definitely get to and probably talk most of the podcast about. But
Hmm.
as far as not firing Vance Joseph, was that the right decision?
Goodness. I mean, just in terms of what the fans seem to want right now, I can't say yes to that. I don't.
So what's the higher priority? Doing what's right for the team on the field right now, or is it the fans? Like, where does that all fall?
I think it's obviously going to always be doing what's right for the team. I mean, how many Rams fans were complaining, 2 years ago or whatever about how, oh, we've never heard of Sean McVay. He's too young to be an NFL head coach. What has he
Right.
really done? I mean, that kind of passion from the fans will always exist. That doubt, that fear of the unknown. I think right now it's kind of at an all-time high as far as I can remember for the Broncos, other than the McDaniels cheating situation
Mm-hmm.
when the prospect of bringing Elway in existed and became more and more realistic, and he had consulted for the team and this and that. So it seemed like the team had a future at that point. Pat Bowlen was still healthy, everything, all that to say, the emphasis being on the field at the time, that's always been Bolen's emphasis, I believe. And so, it to me, I don't know.
So let me course correct my question.
Yeah,
So beyond the fans and the fans' emotions, which we're gonna have to do a lot of that in this podcast, I can
yeah,
tell.
yeah,
Definitely, we should acknowledge the emotions and the feelings because they're very real. We like to say on this podcast, we're human souls riding in these meat vessels.
yep,
So we're all going through that realm of things. But then it's good sometimes to take the sword and slice it between the some of the cold logic and kind of figure out how it marries with some of our feelings of how we sort between those things and navigate those things. So putting the fans' emotions aside, because right now they're bloodthirsty. Putting that all aside, is this the best decision to not fire Vance for the football team?
I don't think so. I think that they should move on. I think you have an option that exists in Gary Kubiak to come and be kind of an interim guy. He can do it,
Would
mostly
he?
pressure free. I don't know if he would, honestly. I mean, I feel like he could do it mostly pressure free. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have to come in and be the offensive coordinator. He doesn't have to come in and do a lot. He just has to manage the game. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not like he's the OC head coach like he was back in 2015, 2016, kind of. And I can't imagine how pressure filled that situation was with Peyton Manning kind of being on his last years too. So
If
I feel like that would be an option.
if Kubiak didn't want to, is it the right
Hmm.
decision to
Uh,
fire Vance?
then it gets murky because I don't think
Okay,
the Broncos really have anybody that could come in
right.
besides him and really, if they're trying to right the ship, I don't think anybody's going to do that. The only thing that I question is whether or not the players in the locker room are really behind everything that's going on.
And
It's kind of hard to judge.
even with that, so that's all. I acknowledge a lot of that is probably really spot on. So what better solution is there for the players that they could get behind besides Kubiak if Kubiak's not on the table? is there another situation that we can go to where the players will group and gather behind somebody else and put on a better on the field product?
I would say no at this point.
So if that's the case, then it seems to me, and this is where I'm going with all this,
Yeah.
it seems to me like maybe the reason why, and I know I'm not the first to think this. I know a lot of other people are kind of rationalizing the situation and talking about it, but it seems to me like there's not a better option right now. And that is hugely playing into, and that's again, assuming Kubiak doesn't want to return to coaching. It doesn't seem like there's a better option potentially in the Broncos coaching staff situation to replace Vance with.
Yeah.
So do you just go full obvious tank mode and just burn it all down with half a season left? That's tough. And I don't know where I stand on it, but it seems, as I was thinking about this and kind of reading some different things, and it's like as soon as you separate the emotions of just axing Vance because we need a scapegoat, we need a villain, we need to throw our frustrations at somebody. But what else is there? What other solution is there beyond just tanking this whole season, giving up on it, firing Vance to ease fan tensions and frustrations? I don't know if there's a better option.
Yeah, I think you make great points. I think that's very valid, especially if Kubiak's not willing to help out in that regard, which he is under no obligation to do so. And I'm guessing the first person to say no for him in that situation would probably be his wife or someone in his family to say like, hey, you know what?
Glad he's in a lesser coaching position.
Yeah, exactly.
With his health issues that he had.
Yep.
So that's tough, man. I don't know. I wish we had an inside source. I guess we got to work on our in the building connections and in the Kubiak family connections. Like, you know, we got one of us has got to make friends with one of his children or something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no way to know what those conversations are like. Very few probably know what those conversations are like between Elway and Kubiak as far as his readiness or availability to take over. And if it's not Kubiak, Musgraves and Woods are both on their own hot seats. You know, they're struggling to handle their responsibilities to put a good product on the field of their half of the so
yeah.
I don't see a solution. Maybe there's not something better than Vance Joseph this season.
Yeah, I think you're right. And a lot of fans, like you said, if you let the emotions play into it, fire the coach, see if the team will just respond to that and see what happens. Come what may, hire somebody in the offseason. But I mean, that is a long time to go without somebody leading the ship. And so if you don't have a viable alternative, you can't really just get people on board with, it's not like last year where we had Musgrave as the QB coach and you can fire the offensive coordinator, Mike McCoy, and say, well, we've got a guy who's qualified. He just led one of the best offenses in the league the year prior.
Right.
And so it's not the same situation where there's somebody behind Vance, but man, Vance does deserve a bit of, I know I've kind of stood up for him in the past. Right. I mean, I've kind of beat the drum of just saying, you know what, like I can kind of reason what he's doing here. I can see what he's doing here, but man, this game against the Houston Texans was a tough pill to swallow.
It was.
Because that was probably, judging by the eye, just purely by the eye test, in my estimation, that was the best game that Case Keenum's played all year.
Yeah, that you could make a good argument about that.
He had that throw to Sutton that fell to the ground. And call it a drop or call it a great play. I don't care what you call it. I mean, he could have made that play.
Almost a touchdown. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you had the
fault him for that as far as, I mean, we're expecting a lot of him coming off the DT trade. We especially wanted, I think, that play to kind of satisfy and relieve some of that tension of losing DT, where his replacement comes in, and has a bigger game than DT and catches some huge passes, including a huge touchdown. That would have been great, but man, that was some great defense. Yeah,
that was great defense. It was a great throw. It was a great throw from Keenum on the money. The defender just made a great play, but and then you had the right at the, I think it was like 9 minutes 40 seconds in the second quarter. Keenum threw a pass out to, it was a perfectly designed play, a slant pass to Jeff Hireman, who also probably had the best game of his life.
He did.
And he
had the
dropped
best.
it.
He had the most catches the Broncos had since Shannon Sharp, when Shannon Sharp caught 12. But I think it's the first double-digit tight end performance since Shannon Sharp caught 12 passes. And Demaryius Thomas never caught double digits.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's crazy. Huh? That is interesting. I didn't know that. That's awesome. That's cool. I mean, that kind of validates my hopes that we'll re-sign Jeff Hireman at the end of the year. I really like him, actually.
I think we maybe it was last offseason where we kind of and somewhat gave up on the prospect of him doing anything for us. When we got Jake Butt, we were like, okay, let's transfer our hopes to Jake Butt. He seems like a better version of what we were wanting in Hireman anyway. Then we lost Butt, we lost Fumagalli. It seemed dire, and then Hireman's looked really good, to the point where I am actually really excited about our original trifecta of tight ends.
Yeah.
If we can field, a healthy trio of Butt, Hireman, and Fumagalli in the future, we could have a good core group of tight ends.
Yeah. I love it. I would love to see that. I think that's right on. You got guys that are, I mean, Hireman's made some tough catches this year too, man.
Yep.
That touchdown that he had yesterday, it doesn't get much more difficult than that. Yeah, both him and Keenum made great plays there. So, and I say all that to say, going towards the end of the half, Keenum was making the necessary plays, and then you have the way that the clock was managed at the end of the half. And this is where the people, if you want to add fuel to the fire of saying, well, Vance Joseph deserves to be fired, or he deserves to at least be in the hottest seat in the NFL right now, the way that end of the first half was handled was pathetic. And he said after the game that he was chasing points, but yeah, it didn't. I mean, just the play selection, the way that they managed the clock, the way that they managed their timeouts, the fact that they had a timeout remaining, and the announcers are calling this out as the game is playing out. He's saying the Broncos have a timeout, and I don't understand why they're not using it to set McManus up for this 62-yard field goal, probably the longest field goal he'll ever have. And it was just shocking. It's shocking to me to see such easy things go.
They put unnecessary difficulty on McManus. That yes. I think is a good way to look at both the end of the first half one and the end of the game. Was you could have gotten closer. You really could have. And in both of those situations, and made those easier for the kicker. You want him to come in clutch. You want him to hit his career long and all that kind of stuff in situations where there's no other choice. But if there was a way to get closer, and part of the reason it was further away is because you wanted to drain some clock. How many top NFL teams would have done that?
Yeah, none that I know of. And you read the lips of Bill O'Brien.
Yep.
I mean, that was about as bad as it gets. I mean, as an NFL head coach, of clock management, of field position, playing the field position game, understanding your team's strengths, understanding your weaknesses, understanding the situation of the game, the score, all of it. I mean, the Broncos lost the game by the margin of a field goal, and I don't think that they lost it on that game-winning attempt at the end of the game. I think they lost it at halftime. That was where, because do you think that, this, and I have a question for you on that. Psychologically, how much does that miss 62-yarder in the rush of all that, how much does that mess with McManus?
Yeah, absolutely. And then how much does, not only, it was a 6-point swing.
Yep.
Because we missed out on 3, and they were in good field position to drive down and get 3 of their own. So that's tough, man. That's tough. It definitely had an impact. And I would say that may have been the best example of bad head coaching. Because I think offensive coordinator wise, we did pretty good with the pieces that we had. The ways that they kind of creatively use the tight ends and things like that. So I don't want to throw the whole coaching staff under the bus, but specifically for those things that Vance Joseph is doing, ones that we know are obvious head coach decisions. That might have been the clearest example of bad head coaching.
Yep.
And he admitted it.
He did. He did admit it. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know what dirt he's got on somebody. This was a thought that I had today. Maybe you can tell me I'm crazy for this. Do you think that with all the ownership stuff going on with the Denver Broncos right now, do you think that Vance Joseph has gone to John Elway and said, "Look, like I'm one of the only guys that's gonna be the captain of this ship going forward. Like, who's gonna buy into a team that has no ownership? Seems like things are falling apart roster-wise. We have no franchise quarterback of the future yet." I mean,
that probably plays into it. I don't know if Vance went in there and was like, look, I'm the guy, stick with me because of all that. But I think without him needing to say that, I think that plays into John's decision as far as how much turmoil across the board the Broncos organization is going through, from the product on the field to the coaching staff to the fans, to, you know, how bad this trade situation is right now, to everything that's going on with ownership. It seems to be an all across the board toxic situation. So I think firing the coach at this point in time could make all of that a lot more complicated and a lot more messy as they're sorting out kind of the multiple dimensions of this thing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, man,
there's a lot of facets.
Yeah, it's a sucky position to be in as a fan, isn't it? I mean, we can definitely empathize in a way with the people who are kind of going crazy about it.
Yeah, I don't get me wrong. I'm not playing the devil's advocate here, but I am trying to set all the right context up so that we can be factoring in as many things as possible. And I don't pretend to be an insider, or, you know, omniscient about this whole thing, but I do want Vance Joseph to not be the Broncos' future head coach. So hear that, you know, that's definitely true. But it's just be realistic. You know, he's not going to, if he wins every game closing out the season, there's no guarantee we're even going to make the playoffs.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You're looking at, I tweeted earlier, the Chiefs and the Chargers combined have as many losses as we have wins.
Crazy.
Going into week 10. So, you know, the Bengals are, I think, 3 or 4 games up above us, something like that. I think they're maybe the best, next best wild card team. So we're about 3 or 4 games out of the 6th spot. And what evidence do we have that we're going to be able to go on a winning streak? You know, I think everybody knows, including John Elway, that this year is not the year where we're going to the playoffs. So Vance is not making it beyond this season. So what's the urgency besides relieving our emotions and our feelings to fire Vance now?
Preach it.
I don't even like saying that, because I'm ready to give him the axe. And even if, and I think also tanking would be great, right? you know, like if we're not going to make the playoffs, I think there was an article I finally saw today that was like, can the Broncos be bad enough for a top 5 pick? And I was like, well, we've crossed into that realm.
We absolutely have. We're right now, we're 8th. We're in the 8th spot. And I don't know if that changed after this Dallas Tennessee game that just transpired. It did not. Dallas is now potentially sending Oakland another, or is it should we call them Las Vegas when we're talking about the 2019 draft?
Well, it's John Gruden's Raiders, which is going to be here for a long time. So we'll call it the Raiders, or the Las Vegas Raiders.
Las Vegas Raiders, 2 top 10 picks right now. But yeah, we're right there at 8th. I mean, that's crazy to think about, that we could be
knocking on
in
death's
the top
door.
5. Yeah.
So that game was frustrating to me. It tricked me, because why did I have hope that we were going to win this game? And what would that matter at this point? You know, it took me about 2-3 minutes to sober up after the game, as far as, you know, getting calibrated with what just happened. But the game tricked me into getting excited. There was enough kind of good plays and some cool things that were going on. Defense was playing. dang near perfect,
Yeah.
toward the end of the game and making all the situations happen that needed to happen. There was a lot that was like, I was like, okay, we're going to win this game. And then we missed the field goal. And I was like, I forgot this is who we are.
Yeah.
Why did I even get excited? But it's like, and then I was like, well, that's good. Yeah, because we want to be losing because we're not going to win the playoffs. And me being the long-term thinker, I've been doing this for 2 years in our fantasy league. This year I'm holding on to the bottom spot in our league so that we're in a dynasty league. I want that number 1 pick. And this week I put up the most points I've ever put up, 143, only to lose to the one guy that scored 145. So I was excited that my team showed promise and potential because they're really young, but at the same time, losing by those 2 points, I was like, okay, cool. I'm still in play for that number 1 pick. And that's kind of the way that this game went. As soon as it ended and we lost, I was like, oh, okay, well, cool. That's good because we probably should lose as many of these games as possible. So I think from the future standpoint of getting a higher draft pick, there was a good argument for firing Vance Joseph. But if no one does that, no one admits openly that they're tanking. Even the Raiders are pretending they're not when we all know they are. So
yeah. If anybody would be accused of tanking, it would be the Raiders.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. I think it's unreasonable to expect whatever the fans are expecting, other than just an advance of, that no pun intended, an advance of what the future holds. Right. I don't think that Vance Joseph is going to be the head coach in 2019, but does that mean that you fire him now when you're 9 games into the season? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that really makes a huge difference. It changes. It hangs a big dark cloud over your team of uncertainty. Your players don't know what's going on. I think everybody understands where the Broncos are heading towards. Right. Now it's just a matter of, okay, what do we do in the interim, and how is Vance gonna? I mean, the Broncos have been, to his credit, they've been more competitive this year than they were last year. That's not to say, well, he's a great head coach who's building this culture from scratch, but I think he's done a lot to tear down what the culture was in Denver for the Super Bowl team, and I think he's also done a decent job, all things considered, with how bad the quarterback play was last year. Things have improved considerably this year, I would say, but still, I mean, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if you're losing by 3 points or 4 points or 7 or 15. What matters is the fact that he's not helping the team win games right now, and that's unfortunate.
If we could skip forward, and this is for all the Broncos fans out there listening, if we could skip forward and see the end of the year and next year we've got our coach. We got a guy we like, some young college guy or whatever. If we could skip forward and see that, then I think it wouldn't matter at all how long Vance is here.
Yeah.
Right. If we could see that, okay, end of the season, Vance is not still our coach, that would relieve a lot of tension. I think it's like people holding on, or us holding on to Vance. Maybe there's the assumption that he still has an opportunity to prove himself as our coach. I think that is all but decided. I just think that is to keep, the best product on the field and keep any consistency that we have left, and not just totally destroy the team halfway through the year when we have competed and we do look better despite some facets maybe not appearing better and some similar problems. We definitely have better talent, a lot of young talent. So I think that finishing out this year as strong as possible seems to be the focus. And if we knew that Vance for sure was going to be gone, I think a lot of people would chill out and not need it to happen right this moment. It's just that uncertainty of like, Vance is still here. We don't want Vance to be our future coach. Okay, he's not going to be. So now it's just a matter of, do we blow it all up mid-season or do we blow it up at the end of the year? And it's probably better to blow it up at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think you're right on with that. I think it's absolutely unreasonable to expect anything could be better at this point if they fire him now and promote, I mean, who are they going to promote? They could figure something out. I know that one of their O-line coaches was a college head coach, Kugler. He was the head coach at UTEP or whatever. And so, I mean, they could maybe figure it out, but it wouldn't be, it would just be more of a mess. And, you know, John Elway doesn't seem to be super I mean, I don't know if he's lying or not. I don't know if he's lying or not, but he doesn't seem to be super upset with the way things are going.
I think he likes some of the promise that we're showing, and that doesn't need to be a this year thing. I think it's like I think maybe it's a little bit of both, but I mean, when we've hung in there with the Rams and the Chiefs twice, you know, within 1-score games, where two of the 3 of those we could have won in like the last part of the game. I think that shows that we're a better team than last year. So I think that he likes the fact that I think he's sitting a little comfy as far as he was last year he settled some of those draft concerns.
Yeah.
He can't draft. He just nailed. I mean, we're going to give him some credit for Lindsey, which I don't know how much he deserves when Lindsey was going to choose Denver after no one chose him. He's going to choose the team he grew up with and loved. So I don't know how much Elway gets for nailing the Lindsey aspect of that. But beyond that, we did a really good job in this draft, and we have a lot of promise for the future because of this draft. So I think maybe that's part of it, is he likes the pieces that we've acquired. We don't seem like we have a whole draft class full of busts. So he's going to be able to go into next year with a lot more of the pieces. And he's just not panicking. And I don't know what to think of that, but I'm not looking at that and being like Elway should be panicking as much as us right now. He probably just knows and is pretty even keeled about we're better than last year, but we're not going to win it this year. And some huge decisions are going to need to be made at the end of the year. You know, if we could have held on to DT and traded him at the end of the year, and that situation would have worked out, he probably would have waited for that too, but there was a trade deadline, you know? So it's like, that was almost a glimpse into the fact that he knows this isn't the year. And if this isn't the year, we all know he's firing Vance. Anyway.
I think we said at the time of the trade deadline when we did our episode then, I think we said that this is really the first sign, the trade of Demaryius Thomas specifically, that's really the first sign that the Broncos intend to kind of reset for the first time in the John Elway era. I mean, he came in to rebuild the Broncos, but now this is the first time under his watch that they've got to be
fully rebuilt.
Yep, fully rebuilt, and that was the first sign of it. I mean, you're getting rid of the longest tenured player, one of the most beloved players on the team by his teammates, and a guy who really, I mean, just kind of did his job for 9 years. And Demaryius Thomas was, you know, often maligned for his dropped passes, but I mean, that guy was also one of the best receivers in the league for a long time. We discussed him at length last episode, so you can go back and listen to that too. But
we're definitely going to talk more in a minute.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. The good of Demaryius Thomas on the previous episode with just all the things that he did for the organization. But yeah, I mean, here's my question to you as we kind of close off this talk of Vance Joseph. If you were a prospective head coaching candidate, how desirable are the Denver Broncos right now?
Not as desirable as some other openings from a team personnel standpoint. I think when you talk about the legacy of the team, and I think the opportunity to come in and add to the culture, I don't think that Vance Joseph derailed our whole identity of fans and the legacy here and all of that. I think that he wasn't a fit for what we're about. He didn't come in and carry the torch forward and really add to the legacy. He seems like he's another kind of asterisk head coach. Josh McDaniels wasn't the first. There were a lot of other Broncos coaches in history that came in, weren't the answer, and then we found the guy. So This isn't a new thing. We get really myopic and really microscopic looking at this, situation for what it's like right now in this situation. But we're one good coach away from coming in and restoring, what once was. I think from a player standpoint, you don't have the most important piece, which is quarterback, but you have two stud young running backs. You have, I think we'll still have Emmanuel next year, correct? He's not.
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna have Emmanuel and Sutton and Hamilton. I don't know what the tight end situation looks like. You and I are a lot more hopeful about all those prospects than probably most people will be looking in. Not a great O-line, but a couple pieces there. And then we still have a half incredible defense. I would say we have a lot more pieces to work with on defense than a lot of these other teams, that, especially the ones that are going to be looking for a head coach. So I think that you want the franchise guy to really attract somebody, but then again, sometimes, unless you're in love with the guy that's there, doesn't it seem like a lot of coaches probably want to come in and choose their own guy if you're going to be around for a while? And you're especially talking about, Vance was a defensive coach, that was his specialty, but the next guy we bring in is probably going to be an offensive guy, which we've needed for, I think, a while now. Peyton came in and was both. He was both the OC that we've needed and the quarterback that we've needed, right? But I think the hope, even of when Bolin transitioned into McDaniels, was we're going to get a young stud guy to be able to evolve into playing modern, high-slinging, high-scoring football. I think that Broncos fans have been yearning for that, and we got a glimpse of it with Peyton, and Gase complemented and worked very well with Peyton's style of football. But we want an offensive coach where it's not the Josh McDaniels problems, but the Josh McDaniels perks that we really wanted. We really want a guy that's going to come in and adapt to the pieces that we have and create a freaking game plan around our team's strengths. And I think that if you're a college coach that's looking at NFL jobs, I think you're looking at the Lindsey and Freeman duo first, and you're going, that would be fun. And then you go, I've got at least a year of Sanders and a bunch of years of Sutton, and Sutton's looking like he's going to be a stud. Hamilton, we haven't really seen much, but if you look at his college game, you go, okay, there's something there too. And, we're probably going to have a top pick.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. I think that we're a pretty attractive option. I think we're probably a B in the attractive options market when you factor everything in. I know that there's the ownership problem right now, but that could be resolved. And I don't know how much the coach is really worried about that. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm clueless about that aspect of things, but I think from a personal standpoint, you wish they had a quarterback and you wish the ownership stability was set. And if those things were in place, we'd be A+ number one prospect.
Yes. Agreed. And I don't know, to me, if I were a head coaching candidate, I don't know how much the ownership situation would really play into my decision.
Right.
I guess, it would be awesome to play for, Pat Bolin back in the day, to work for him. I think that was an attractive thing for a lot of people because of how much he did for the game. Yeah. But in terms of just who do you consider to be really strong owners across the league that are reputable, that coaches and players and anybody in general just wants to work for? I don't know that anyone really comes to mind. Robert Kraft. Does anybody ever say that they wanted to go play for the Patriots because of Robert Kraft?
No, Belichick and Brady.
Your coach and your quarterback set the culture of your team, and so the Broncos are obviously, I don't know if Keenum is. I don't know what he's going to do as far as any improvements made, but I don't know. It's just I don't know what the Broncos course is that John always says.
We need a visionary, and I think that I am so the last person that, maybe to a fault, maybe I'll admit that to some of you that are listening and really upset at Elway. I'm the last person to get upset at Elway. As I said, maybe that's to a fault, but I know that I'm aware of the things he doesn't do right, but I'm also aware of how much worse it could be. And I think that he has The greatest stat, which I see you, Sayre, talk about all the time when defending the Broncos and defending Elway, he built the greatest offense and the greatest defense, arguably, on both of those. Arguably, someone's always going to say one team. Okay, but yeah, they're still top three, so you're missing the essence of my point. But, you know, he built arguably the best offense and the best defense in history 3 years apart, and has been responsible, had a heavy hand in 3 world championships that he's brought to the city. I would choose, some of Elway's mishaps and stumblings. You also know me. We talk about this a lot. I like people that admit their faults. I don't care how much you screw up if you're learning from your mistakes. We've talked about this before here on the Knights of Den. I don't care if you stumble. I want to see you acknowledge and talk about those things and how you're learning from them and getting better. And then I'm going to have full confidence that you're somebody that's capable of growing at the very least. And I like that about Elway. It seemed like he has, talked about some of those things he hasn't done well. And it seems like he probably learned a lot from these failed drafts and just applied it to this one and freaking nailed it. So I don't get the Elway hate that's going on right now, even about the situation. I'm looking in the comments and I'm seeing, 3/4 of them are, of course, fire Vance Joseph, but the other 1/4 is fire Elway and Vance. And I see it so much, and it's just, I'm not tapped into that frequency. It just doesn't seem, that part of it doesn't make sense to me. I don't see how Elway is the problem with this situation.
No, that to me is ridiculous. I mean, I get being frustrated, but firing what's that going to do? I mean, who are you? Like you just mentioned it. I mean, he built the best offense statistically, scoring wise of all time. And people, that's the funny thing about it too, is people always say, we'll take away Peyton Manning from the equation. Well, why would you do that?
He brought him there.
Yeah, he's the one who went out and
stepped in as literally the dark horse and came in and stole him from the 3 teams that everybody was talking about are the 3 major suitors. I think it was Tennessee, Niners, and somebody else that were all heavily courting him. Broncos come in out of nowhere and freaking steal the whole thing. Yeah. And that was Elway. That was Elway coming in with negotiating and bringing his presence and his aura and his experience of having closed his career off with rings. And what did he do? He delivered. And not only that, people like to go, okay, but that was just Peyton Manning. It wasn't Peyton Manning with John Fox.
Right.
It was Peyton Manning firing everybody, switching, even going to Gase and allowing Gase to just, evolve and unleash that offense. Elway had a hand in all of that.
Right.
So it's just like, I don't see how, people seem to like to blame him for anything that goes wrong. But I think that as long as he's learning from what he's not doing right, I don't see how there's a better option for that. What better are we going to bring in? Are we have a guaranteed great GM? How many NFL teams have really good general managers that carry the kind of at least negotiating prowess and have the magnetic attraction to bring in big free agents?
To me, I don't know that there's any better person for that than, maybe Belichick. If you're talking like a college recruiting style type of deal, who do you trust to get deals done? Right. Belichick could convince anybody to play for him. I would say that. Yeah. But I think other than that, who do you look at for that? It all depends. John Elway he's been at the pinnacle of the game, and he's also, and not only as a player, but as an executive. And so I think that that's the biggest thing in his favor. And so
I got one thing to say about this real quick. So say Elway nails the head coach and gets the right guy. Okay. And together, Elway and the new coach, whether it's this year or next year, 2019 draft, 2020 draft, get the franchise quarterback of the future. Fast forward to about 2 years, and they've got the quarterback and they've got the coach, and things are moving in a great direction. Is anybody wanting to fire Elway?
Exactly.
No. And yes, I know that's a big if, but we're wanting to fire him for the 2 down years. Like, yes, Vance Joseph is going to be a dark mark on John Elway's GM, VP of football, whatever his title is. Yes, it's a dark mark. It's a dark couple years in his resume as a GM, but he's won correct head coach hiring, and the two of them combining their powers and finally landing the right quarterback. And then no one's going to want to fire him. So why fire him now for his first bad coaching hire?
Yeah, exactly. Because how good was the John Fox hire at the time? I mean, he was exactly what that team needed for stability.
Yep.
And just being kind of conservative with Tebow and the running game and getting the defense back on track. And then after 4 straight division titles and a Super Bowl appearance, I mean, Elway had the gall to go and fire him.
Yeah.
And then hire look at the hire that he went and made.
Together and got us a Super Bowl.
Yep. Exactly.
And then to replace him and replace Peyton Manning at the same time after losing a bunch of free agents, which always happen when you win the Super Bowl, we then want to just completely blow up everything, including Elway, and go back to ground zero. You don't think Elway is the one thing out of everything that we shouldn't blow up? It's like Elway and Von Miller. Those two are the only things, in my opinion, that are untouchable about this situation going forward. Yep. Or at the top of the list. I don't know about the only untouchables, but those are the 2 most important untouchables where I just don't get. I'm never going to understand that argument.
No, I won't either.
Nobody I want maintaining the vision of the Broncos than Elway. And that Fox move, like we just talked about, is I think the biggest evidence that he has our back, and mediocrity isn't good enough.
Yep. And he's proving over the past couple of years, like you said, he's willing to admit mistakes. He cut Paxton Lynch 2 years into the 2 years into the experiment.
Yep.
I mean, it was he's set a standard of excellence in Denver himself. He built, along with Pat Bowlen, I would say, John Elway and Pat Bowlen built the standard of excellence that is the Denver Broncos.
That we can even say and claim to share.
Yes.
Like, we are honored to be able to share that they invite us into that legacy. Because if anyone's earned it, if anyone earns the right to say that I carry the presence of the Denver Broncos, it's Elway and frickin' Bowlen for sure.
Yeah. And right now, unfortunately, Pat can't speak into this stuff, but I guarantee you Pat and Elway would be working together on this. Right. Not trying to figure out ways to get Elway out of there. It's
no.
Excuse
me. That was Pat's last move. Was for John to come in and freaking restore the team, and he brought Pat a last ring. Yep. It's like Again, this whole argument against Elway just makes 0 sense to me. 0 sense.
Yeah, I'm completely agreed on that. I can get on board with if people disagree with some of his decisions or draft picks or free agent moves, but like you said, there's nobody else who has the best interests of the Broncos at heart more than Elway. There's nobody out there he's part of he is the organization. I mean, he is synonymous with the Denver Broncos. It's always been Elway. And so to me, it's just a ridiculous, petty thing that people are they want to find somebody to blame about everything. And I guess I can agree with some of it, but to fire the guy who made the organization the standard we're all holding it to. That doesn't make any sense to me.
And what's your reasoning? Because he made one bad head coaching decision and stuck with them for 2 years. Like, isn't that just about the average of how much time coaches get? It's about a season or 2 to see if they can put it together. It's anyway. So let's talk about one of the most recent Elway decisions. Speaking of critiquing the decisions, and I know we talked about it a bit last week, but it's become we have some more revelations as Bronco fans and Denver media, and I guess the whole world who's paying attention now to the drama that was both behind the scenes with the coaching situation and has now been brought out into the public spectrum by Demaryius Thomas. So what are your thoughts? Because I have some thoughts, but I want to know yours.
So I think at first glance, it's really disappointing. I mean, to see what Demaryius was talking about, the things that happened behind the scenes, it's disappointing to see all these worst case scenario rumors of, was Demaryius lied to? Was he really not told anything about a trade, or was he even told specifically that he wasn't going to be traded? And then to read the thing about how he was voted, essentially, it sounds like he was saying it from these quotes. And if you haven't listened to it, go listen to the interview 760 Orange and Blue Demaryius Thomas did with the guys on Crown Stout with Rod Smith, and it's really interesting stuff. Even just to hear anything from somebody's first person perspective is always interesting. There's always two sides of the story, but DT, he made it sound like he was voted a team captain before the season, and essentially the coaches decided, no, it's going to be.
I didn't
Case
get
Keenum.
that from that.
Really? That's kind of how I read it. Was that it sounded like he was saying that the players told him, some of his teammates said
he was upset that they didn't vote him as captain.
Yeah, so he said, let me find the exact quote, and you can tell me what you think. I'm just scrolling through here. Essentially, okay, here it is. He said that he had a meeting with John Elway. He said that he had a way of mentoring players beforehand, and they wanted it to be a different way. And he said, when I had the meeting, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a captain again. I go to the meeting room, and it's like every player came to me and was like, how are you not a captain? We picked you. I was like, man, it's all good, bro. I'm here. I'm going to be here for you all. I did whatever I had to make sure Cortland Sutton was right, Deshaun Hamilton, yada, yada. I wanted everybody to be good on the squad because it would make us better as a team. To not be a captain, it was just heartbreaking. So what I gleaned from that was when he said that every player came to me and was like, how are you not a captain? We picked you. It sounded like to me they put it to a player vote and the coaches maybe overruled it or something like that is how I kind of read into that. But because obviously the offensive captains for the Broncos are Case Keenum and Matt Paradis, who just broke his leg. Horrible injury. But yeah, I don't know. That was kind of how I read into that, or at least that seems like it's what maybe Demaryius was interpreting it as potentially. I don't know.
Yeah,
you can read it a lot of ways.
I want to dig more into that, and I'd like to know more about that situation because I want to know whether or not he was just not voted by his peers, and some people came up to him and said, we voted for you, or if they made. Have we ever heard of anything like that, of like it not going up to the players, of them saying that this person's not going to be captain whether you guys vote for him or not? That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that does. I mean, that would be a weird move by the coaching staff to override what the players wanted just to make. And it could be, I mean, Paradis is obviously, he's been with the Broncos for a while now. He's played how many games and snaps in a row, that kind of the Broncos Iron Man. He deserved to be a captain. Keenum was coming in for the first time, and obviously he had earned a lot of respect from his teammates. But DT was a captain last year, if I'm not mistaken. And he was he's the longest tenured player on the team, beloved by his teammates, one of the great teachers on the team for his specific position, and just guys in general around the team. Great community guy. I don't know. I could see, if I'm putting on the conspiracy theorist hat for a moment, I could see the coaching staff forcing the captain patch onto Case Keenum's jersey just as a way to signify, hey, this is our leader. This is the guy that we believe in. He's going to be leading the team to greener pastures, yada yada.
Huh. And a lot of the articles and things I'm saying is he was really affected by not being named captain. And he had a lot to say about how heartbreaking it was to not be selected as captain. So That's interesting. I want to know more about that, because when I had first breezed over that, I got more that he was upset that he wasn't a captain rather than that he was like cheated out of being captain. Which I don't see how, if you're the Broncos, how you're gonna specifically block him out from being a captain. I find that hard to believe.
Yeah,
I really do.
Yeah, that would be, that would be bizarre for sure.
So my thoughts on this whole situation are, I think, kind of complicated, and I'm irritated at a lot of different things in different places. I've been trying to kind of sort myself out and figure out where I stand on a lot of this. This is not surprising to me, though, at all. I will say that. And I think the reason I'll say that is because this seems like what we can expect from just about everybody involved in this. We all know that inside the coaching situation is a crap show, to put it nicely. So we all know that aspect of things. That part of it's not surprising. Now, more of what I think about Demaryius in this situation, I'm struggling to like understand where the clash was with him not being told, and how much of that he should have been told. And then the whole aspect of, they told me I wasn't, but then I was. Okay, so Vance seemed to be completely shutting down the rumors. And we've talked about this as far as whether it's good to go out for the press and basically lie to keep the locker room intact, and the strategy behind that, and what was better, right? So I think when Vance comes out and Demaryius is supposedly on the trade block based on the rumors, right? And Vance completely shuts it down. I sat there arms crossed like, okay, like John's wheeling and dealing behind the scenes and fielding offers because the trade makes sense, which we'll get to again in a second, because I have some thoughts on that again. But Vance specifically, Vance should shoulder a lot of Demaryius's heartbreak in this, because the quotes in the article, or in the radio interview that he had about his frustrations about being told that he wasn't going to be traded, he quoted Vance when he was talking about that. Vance said, ignore the trades. Don't worry about the trade stuff, blah, blah. It's like, it's not. And he was the one at the press conference that said, no, I haven't heard anything about that, blah, blah, blah. He was trying to keep his locker room intact. And he was the one that seemed to be the one telling Demaryius the most that he wasn't going to be traded. Now, how much of that, another facet of this, how much of that was Elway supposed to be telling Demaryius the whole time? Okay, that's something I think people are irritated at Elway about. But when I look at how Demaryius is handling the situation, he seems to be handling this in an emotionally immature way. In my opinion, he is coming across, and he's kind of looking. We've always known this about Demaryius. This is where, again, this is not surprising. So we've always known Demaryius, all the things he was saying about being a great teammate. He's always just had a good attitude. He has, as far as the people in the locker room. But Demaryius is also many times seemed to be stuck in his own head. And when things aren't going right, he seems to kind of crumble in on himself. Is that fair as far as the past, I would say 5 or 6 years? Doesn't it seem like many times there's been moments where he's struggling against himself?
Yeah, I would say so.
Almost like he's not playing up to his potential, because it seems like something's going on in his head. Whether it was when his stuff was going on with his mom, I know that that's the easiest one to point to. But it seemed at times that mental toughness, lacking mental toughness. It's not an intelligence thing, just lacking mental toughness, whatever quality that is. It seems like that's a characteristic of Demaryius. He's an emotional guy, which is, we're seeing that. We're seeing the emotions. We're seeing the raw emotion. But we're talking about less than a week since the trade. And he goes on a radio show and just about spills. He pours his whole heart out. In a way that's really damaging to the state of situations. Now, not shocking, because these are all things we're assuming is going on. But tell me this, okay, with the way he's handling this and the emotion and the fragility he's showing and how the situation has affected him, how much, if you're Elway, are you kind of like worried about how much you should tell Demaryius because he seems fragile?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense now. I mean, why they wouldn't have said anything to him about it, because if they were trying to find a way to deal him and they said, "Hey, look, here's what we're trying to do." I mean, he seems to be pretty
He
open with
breaks.
the media.
He seems like he breaks easy as far as whether it's something going on in his family or whatnot. This seems to be a characteristic of Demaryius. Okay, so that's my first frustration of this is like, I don't know how much I would have been telling Demaryius everything if he may fall apart on the field during your last couple weeks with him if you let him know that you're trading him.
Yeah.
Or that you're fielding offers. And then that hurts the team. So it's the whole, this is just business. There's a degree of that's true, but at the same time, we all know that there's a huge degree of it that's not true, that these are people. And Demaryius especially is a very emotional guy, you know, for I would say more for the better than for the worse. He's an emotional guy. I think it's connected him with a lot of his fellow teammates. I think that's been a mostly good thing, but he's also an emotional guy in the sense that maybe you have to kind of tiptoe around upsetting him or hurting his feelings. So John Elway not telling him, "Hey, we're trading you," was probably a good strategic decision. If we're talking about separating the feelings from, you know, the cold reality of this business. And one thing I want to put into context, and this is going to be something I'm going to ask you. So forget about the future. Okay. Is Demaryius worth next year's thing? Was an argument in itself, but has Demaryius has he performed at the level in which he's been paid?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, those are like top 5 receiver numbers he was getting his contract.
Yeah.
And has he performed as a top 5 receiver?
No, he has not.
So this is sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I would say that he's put his body out there. I mean,
he's tried
relative to, he's put in the effort for sure.
And that's I think it seems like entirely what he's anchoring his side of the argument on is that he's given him full self, and I would not argue with that. Okay, now has it proved? Has the results been there? And I understand we've had a not a great quarterback situation, but we're talking about going back to 2012. Going back to 2012, number 1 most drops in the NFL in that span. Going back to 2015, number 2 most drops. And then this year, he has the most drops in the NFL. So my second frustration with Demaryius in this is not only has he seemed fragile in how he's handled this, but just very sensitive in that aspect of things. And again, that's not a totally terrible thing, but it also is important to kind of put that into context. But the other thing that's really frustrated me is that he doesn't seem to be taking any personal accountability for why he was traded. He seems like he's acting very entitled. And he's not the first receiver and player to have been shown this kind of treatment. I mean, look at Peyton Manning.
Right.
If Peyton Manning can get cut, anyone can get cut.
Exactly.
Period. So you're talking about a guy that is crossing into, I mean, he's 30 years old, going to be 31 in December. Okay. He's on the back end. He's making top 5 receiver money, and he's not fielding top 5 results. And a lot of that is coming from the ball being placed in his vicinity and him dropping it to the point where he's number 1 and number 2 in a 6-year span, a 3-year span, and a 1-year span. And you don't see that mentioned whatsoever by him. It's all about how he's been wronged and how this situation wasn't fair and how they treated him and these kinds of things. Oh, they blame me. They say I'm the problem, this and that. Okay, now the problem? No, Demaryius is not the problem. He hasn't been the problem ever. Has he been a problem?
At times.
I would say
Yeah.
so. At times, he definitely has. When you're talking about you're leading the league in drops in not only a 6-year span, but a 1-year span. Okay. That's a problem, especially when you're making a huge amount of money and set to make a huge amount of money. And so he talks about it is what it is, but then less than a week after being cut, he goes and just spills all of this, which is not going to help his former teammates. It seems very short-sighted, very, very immature. And that just frustrates me because I love DT. Don't get me wrong. There's multiple layers to this. And part of it is I have tremendous respect for the player that he was for us. But the reason why I wasn't really upset at him getting cut or getting traded, and why we all knew that when we drafted Cortland Sutton that we were okay with not re-signing Demaryius again, was because of the drops. Because he hasn't produced the on-field stats that his contract warrants. And he did not take any accountability for his side of the equation. And to me, that's disappointing. We just rolled out a freaking banner for him. We left the banner on and said, thank you, DT. We handled this situation with as much diplomacy and class as I think the situation demanded for something that's really tough, but yet the right decision for the organization. But you know who did not handle the situation with class? Less than a week later, Demaryius Thomas. That's my rant.
I think you're spot on there. Actually changed my opinion about it. I mean, I kind of came into this thinking that what he did or what he said was pretty damning for our coaching staff.
That aspect's true, right?
Yeah.
It could be both things.
That's true. That is a fair point.
He shined a light on and confirmed a lot of our suspicions that there's a huge crap fest going on behind the scenes. How the only part of that I'm not sure I necessarily agree with, and once again, I'm sure people are saying, or thinking I'm a total Elway homer after everything I've said in this episode, but I don't know how much. With me, I've got a lot of complicated relationships in my family, a lot of complicated friendships, right? And there's certain people that you can be raw and real with, and there's certain people that you have to be very sensitive with. I'm dealing with this all the time with my friends and family. Okay. So maybe Elway would have liked Demaryius to have the demeanor and the thick skin where he could handle that hard conversation where it's like, look, the reality is this is the situation, blah, 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 blah. But how Demaryius has handled this, to me, it confirms that Elway did the right thing by not telling him.
Yeah. No, I think you're right on about that. And one of my first, because I'm a Broncos fan first, I'm a big fan of Demaryius Thomas, but I'm a Broncos fan first. One of my first reactions to this was kind of like, wow, maybe they got rid of a bad apple.
Right.
Not that Demaryius ever.
I don't want to think that.
No, I don't want to think that either at all.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. But I can't help but think something like that. I mean, after hearing him say that, and I mean, he was one of those players who what did we say? We said this in an episode earlier this year. We'd have to go back and look and listen, but there was something that we talked about the culture of the team last year and how you had all these players who won a Super Bowl and a coaching staff full of guys who have never won one or never even sniffed one. And that doesn't mix well.
No,
that can't mix well. And Demaryius Thomas, what has he not achieved as a professional football player?
Right.
I mean, he was part of one of the best playoff wins in Broncos history, part of 2 Super Bowls. Did he not set the receptions record in the Super Bowl?
He did.
He did that. He's been an All-Pro. He's been in the Pro Bowl. He's one of the best receivers of all time. He basically, the Broncos guaranteed, I think John Elway even guaranteed him a spot in the Ring of Fame.
Yep.
Eventually. what has he not accomplished as a player? And so, and that, I mean, I'm not saying it got to his head. I will never say that, but you tend to, the more experience you get, the older I get, the more I feel like I could say to somebody, well, like I kind of have this life experience, you know, like I've been doing this for 8 years, you know, like I feel like there's times where somebody could come in and they've been doing this, you know, they've been doing something that I've been doing for 8 years. They've been doing it for 1 or 2.
Right.
And you want to say to that person, like, hey, look, like, I kind of know what I'm doing. Like
Right.
I've been there and back again 3 or 4 times. And so it's not that DT didn't have that. I think the Broncos afforded him plenty of opportunities to lead people, but I think you're right. I think the way that he handled this situation, not exactly the best way. I think inadvertently he's kind of doing everyone a favor by shedding some light on this situation that needs to be changed. And so the Broncos can't really veil anymore at this point. They can't really veil like, well, things are not as bad behind the
But
scenes
again,
as
is
it
that
seems.
good for the team right now? It
No.
seems very convenient for him to say all that, but what is that doing to the team you're trying to keep together? I mean, talk about
Right.
John Elway. It seems like everything we've talked about tonight is connected and correlates to all the other things we've talked about, right?
Yeah.
So keeping the locker room together and not firing Vance Joseph and not blowing the whole thing up. Doesn't this seem like Demaryius is somewhat, you know, I don't know how best to say this. He's not blowing it up, but doesn't it seem like on his exit, he's throwing a fit and not really thinking about the mess he's leaving behind in doing so?
Yeah.
I mean,
No, yeah.
how much confidence are you going to have in your coach and in your organization to the guys that you were just supposed to be mentoring on the Broncos?
No, yeah. Yep.
Which is a whole nother, you know, brief part of this is him getting upset that they took him out and asked him to let Deshaun Hamilton have more reps, and him maybe not visibly throwing a fit then, because this is the first we've heard of it, but inwardly throwing a fit because he's still talking about it all these months later as something that's still been eating away at him.
Yeah.
Like he was asked to as the veteran, longest tenured Bronco, you know, and Emmanuel was hurt for most of last season, right?
Yeah. Yep. He played hurt a lot too.
You could rationalize that the reason that they asked him out and not Emmanuel is because Emmanuel needs to maybe get more comfortable in the offense because he's had less time in it. Anyway, that's a whole nother argument and topic and aspect of this. It doesn't matter as much. But regardless, him being asked as a veteran to take less reps and allow the young guys to play more to see what we have in them, and just getting upset doesn't seem like leadership characteristics, which this is why I wouldn't be surprised with the way he's handling this and the lack of production on the field. I wouldn't have been surprised if he wasn't voted team captain.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think that's logical. I mean, I think it's logical to look at it that way. Yeah.
You know, and we don't know. I'm sure we're probably going to hear some more about this as time goes on, but I'm just disappointed that he didn't have the fortitude to wait this out, process his emotions, talk about this stuff behind the scenes. Why does he got to go on Bronco radio and just, you know, complain?
Yeah.
With less than a week since the trade happened. And again, I get that he's emotional. I'm not saying it's a problem for him to necessarily feel these things. It's just a matter of like, it doesn't seem like mature behavior. And sometimes you got to be diplomatic, and maybe you go on a radio show in the off season and you talk about this kind of stuff after Vance has been fired, looking back on hindsight, once your emotions have tempered down and settled a little bit and you've put some things in perspective. I think that's that's the mature response to this. So I don't want to diminish DT. I don't want DT to be diminished in my mind. And it seems like he's souring himself a little bit. But then you go and you look online and there's a lot of there's a lot of Bronco fans that are just throwing fits and demanding Elway and Vance are fired over this situation.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of problems in the Broncos coaching staff. We should all know that and agree on that by this point. But I don't know, man. I just don't think that was the right way to handle it. And I don't like him exiting this way. None of us want to say goodbye to DT, but you know what? We all wish we were in a situation, I think Elway and Broncos fans, to where re-signing Demaryius, letting him live out his whole contract, and then re-signing Demaryius and letting him finish his career as a Bronco. I think we all would have preferred that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But his play didn't warrant it. And that's, to me, the number one takeaway from his hissy fit that he's throwing right now, is that he took no personal accountability for his end of things, that he's leading the league in drops in just about every sample size.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right on.
We talked about Elway taking responsibility and improving his mistakes. If Demaryius had been like, look, I understand I've been going through a lot, and at times, I've had some drops, and I've had some mental errors and things like that, but I've given my whole heart for this team. I think his argument would have been freaking almost inarguable. It would have been ironclad. But to me, the lack of that, and the pointing at the finger of everyone else is the problem now is completely treated unfairly. It seems like maybe he doesn't have the self-awareness to realize his role in this.
Yeah, he's kind of taken on the role of victim, and
right.
you never want to do that as a professional in anything. You don't want
Jerry Rice wouldn't have done that.
No.
We're talking greats. We're talking he's Demaryius is our closest thing we've ever had to a Jerry Rice caliber receiver, right?
Yep.
And yet that's just on field, because we're talking about how he's handling himself. This is very un-Jerry Rice-like. This is, this is not how the wide receiver behaved in these situations. This is childish behavior, man. I'm just calling it as it is. And I know it's probably upsetting a lot of people for me saying this, because we all love Demaryius and he's done a lot of great things, but let's put everything in the right proper box. We can love Demaryius. We can wish things went differently. We can realize the Broncos coaching staff is Vance needs to get fired. We can realize that. And DT can also not be handling the situation right.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed on that. And you really seeing the way that Demaryius has handled this is very similar to the way that Dez Bryant handled getting released from Dallas.
Right.
He was not happy about that. It's a shot to your pride,
right.
The team that drafted you, the team that, you grew up with, so to speak, in the NFL. That's the team that you put in all your time and effort and your blood, sweat, and tears. And that's where you kind of became who you are. He grew up as an adult as a Denver Bronco, and then they traded him away for a 4th-round pick. That's a shot, and that's a shot right to the gut, and rightfully so. He had a right to grieve over that. But you're right. There's kind of the stages of grief, and he's at the point right now of just kind of like
shock.
He's in shock.
He's responding out of his wounds, and he's hurt, and I have full empathy for that. Absolutely. Yes. I get that. I get what he's going through as a human being right now, but that's also why you grieve and vent these things with your family and friends.
Yeah.
He made the mistake of going on the radio and even in his post-game interview. Oh, that's what they do over there. They don't win over there. It's like, dude, and that's where you see a huge divide in Broncos fans and how they respond to that. A lot of them were pissed. And then a lot of them were like, well, that's right. We don't know how to win right now. And it's almost like both sides of that argument, I think, are true. But look at how he's dividing Broncos fans in that. It's like, that's unnecessary comments. I would have liked to have seen him go out with class and diplomacy, even if he was wronged.
Yeah, agreed.
And I'm only 7 months younger than this guy. Me and him are both graduates of 2005, so I don't feel like I'm talking down to him. I don't feel like I'm talking up to him. I feel like I'm talking to a peer that I've had mad respect for, that I love. Obviously it's not a two-way street, because, he doesn't know me, But,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
somebody whose jersey I have put on my body in public on about 30, 40, 50 occasions. Like I
Mhm.
have mad respect for this guy. I don't want this to be the case, but he is disappointing me right now as somebody I'm looking mutually at again.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be the situation, but it is. And I don't know how to call it any other way than to say that you should be better. You should handle this better, even and especially if you're wronged. You don't have to fire these shots back. If we just traded him away, didn't hang the banner, buy DT, but man, we just freaking tried to celebrate him in the game where he played against us.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
don't go this
Yep.
way. Don't
Yeah,
be
don't
this
go
way.
this way.
Go, if you're mad and you're upset, go talk to people about it. Go see a counselor. Go talk to
Yeah.
your friends. I don't know
Yeah.
what his religious beliefs are these days. Go talk about it. Talk to God. Talk to the pastor. Talk to your wife, your girlfriend, your best friend. Go talk to Hopkins. Go talk to
Yeah.
go go talk to Watson. Go talk to Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, go vent with Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, you guys can both call him a F-wad or whatever.
Yeah,
He
the
called
dumb
Vance
F.
Joseph. Yeah,
Yeah.
dumb F, or so it's like go do that. Don't go publicly shame the organization less than a week because your feelings are hurt. That's
Yeah.
my takeaway.
I think those are great takeaways. I think that's a great perspective that a lot of people need to hear that, because it's not just the same people who are defending Demaryius Thomas today are the same people who 6, 7, 8 weeks ago were chastising him for dropping passes in games
Right.
and saying that DT needs, and you and I both, not as a way to disrespect DT or as a way to diminish what he's done for the organization. You and I had called prior to the Jets game, I think, for more Deshaun Hamilton, or it was shortly after the Jets game, of saying at the expense of Demaryius Thomas, we need more Deshaun Hamilton.
Yeah.
And we said that on this show, and apparently the Denver Broncos are thinking the same exact thing. We need to get the young guys on the field, and right now, Emmanuel Sanders might be the best offensive player on the team, him and Phillip Lindsay. So why would you take Emmanuel Sanders out based on tenure with the team, based on the years you've been with the team? I mean,
everybody, including DT, knows this. Sutton's his replacement. So it's like, we need to see what we have in these guys, and that's where he needs to think outside of himself and his own emotions and think about what's best for the team. And I know it's hard to do that because you got to look out for yourself as well. But if you're going to say you're a team player and you're doing what's best for the young guys and all that, you can't be both ways, man.
Yep.
That's where his argument falls apart.
Yeah, he wants to be the mentor to the players, but he also doesn't want to miss out on the snaps and the targets. I get that. Right. I can understand that. I can understand that perspective, but at the same time, you're right. You can't have your cake and eat it too in the NFL. But the Broncos, honestly, and again, we're not trying to be super mega John Elway homers here, but how big of a solid did the Broncos do him by sending him to a team that he is going to get a lot of targets? He is going to get a lot of snaps. He's going to get a chance to play in the playoffs again. I mean,
right.
The Texans are one of the best teams in the NFL, right? In a 6-game winning streak.
I love that tweet where it was, he went from a team that lost 6 out of 7 to a team that's won 6 out of 7. Yep. So what is he really having to complain about right now? I mean, obviously that's a simplistic way of looking at it, but still that's a factor. It's a factor.
Yep. It is.
Yeah. We talked about, let's see, September 16th. I said, it breaks my heart, but it might be time to trade DT. I just looked up my tweet about it.
Look at that.
That was a wild, obviously, once again, I'm not saying I'm the first person to say it, but, we were talking about that. What was September 16th? Was that like
week 2 or 3? Yeah.
So there was some crucial drops. I think that was probably 3. It's probably after our first loss. I would like to say. And then, that's we were talking about it then, that it's like, I don't see how, we're not, especially for going to him in clutch situations. We talked extensively in one episode about Let's go to Demaryius a few times a game, few choice times a game, but we need to stop relying upon him as the core cog of our offense when he's dropping the ball this much. He's too inconsistent.
Exactly.
Months ago,
Yep.
and so this is why this is not surprising. And I don't like how he's saying, oh, they said I was the problem. That's like somebody that it reminds me of a kid that's like over exaggerating the situation when he's got in trouble. Like, everybody hates me because like somebody hates him,
Yeah.
and it's like you over amplify the situation. And it's like, they said I was the problem. Well, you could have been a problem. And guess what? In my opinion, and in your opinion, we're on record for saying he was a problem.
Yeah. Yep.
And we're not the only ones in Broncos country or the coaching staff or the casual NFL viewer. I remember there was one game, was it Bruce Arians? I think it was Bruce Arians was announcing, and he was talking about how Demaryius has been infamous for how he's dropped the ball more than anyone else in the league. That was part of his commentary during one of the games. I remember that this season, so this is not a shocking situation that, we thought he was part of the problem, but that doesn't mean you're the whole problem. But be a man and accept responsibility for the aspects that you haven't done right. And you can put your whole heart into it and still be dropping balls. Vance Joseph is going to the podium, and we can give him credit for pointing out his own flaws and how he poorly managed this first half. In the end of the first half, he said it. I got greedy. I would like DT to be going out that way if he's going to talk about it. Tell the whole picture. Don't just play the victim and tell your half of it.
Yeah, you're right. He should have done that. He likely won't, but he should have done that. He shouldn't have drug everyone through the mud on the way out. It's not just as simple as he's got a better situation now. That's the end of it. There are feelings involved. These are human beings, and you and I, we both empathize with that.
Yeah,
we're both in DT's corner in that regard. But like you've been saying, I mean, he's got to acknowledge what went wrong and why the Broncos were. I mean, you're looking at a $17.4 million cap hit next year for DT, and you take $14 million off the books.
That's Calvin Johnson money, man.
Yeah. That's mega wide receiver money. So to be able to take 13, 14 mil off the books next year, that's 2-3 starters for your team.
Especially when we're not good enough to be contending. We're rebuilding, man. And you're unfortunately a casualty of that. And it's partially the fact that we haven't found a quarterback. It's a lot of other people's faults. And it's also partially your fault.
Yeah.
We and again, I don't want to just go in circles. We just talked about Elway. I don't care how much he screws up. Just admit you're part of it and grow and get better. That's what I want to see from DT. I want to be in DT's corner with this. I want to root for him to do really. I want to watch DT in the playoffs. I want to watch DT have a good career. I want to watch DT from this point forward. He's someone that we love. So this critique is not because we hate Demaryius Thomas. It's because he needs to be handling this exit with more class and just more maturity. Because he is a leader. He's an NFL leader. A lot of wide receivers in the NFL look up to him, even outside of the Broncos.
Yep.
And the way he's handling this, is everyone supposed to go out this way? He seems like this is maybe something he might regret, is talking about it like this eventually, when he realizes that he was speaking out of hurt feelings, which we can empathize with. And at the same time, go, dude, there's a better way to do this.
Yep. And for the record, I think the Broncos have a really good wide receivers coach. I don't think that was right to throw him under the bus for trying to play Deshaun Hamilton in one game
and give him some snaps.
Yeah, I think that he's been a really good coach. Even Emmanuel Sanders has said, he was tough to get used to at first, but he's come around on him, and I think he's done a great. I mean, that's one of the best position groups on the team, in my opinion. Those guys play well every single week. The wide receivers do. They've vastly improved. So I like what he's doing, and I think that this whole thing boils down to DT's feelings are hurt, and he has a right to, have some hurt feelings based on based on the tale that he just told about being told that the trade rumors are false, and not only his head coach but position coaches or assistant coaches telling him, yeah, it's all just talk, it's blah blah blah, it's whatever. Well, then to ultimately get traded, I mean, that's hard. It's hard to be. You can't say that it's not hard to be lied to. You and I would both agree with that. It
I don't think,
sucks.
and I don't think you or I at all in this has advocated that Demaryius isn't supposed to feel this way. We
Right.
want him to take responsibility and to not have such a rash, just not throw a fit upon the exit. It's not about not feeling hurt from this situation, but you got to look at it. You got to look at your role in it, and you got to take your own personal responsibility and then move forward as a man into the next situation. You got a better chance at the playoffs this year, man. And Broncos country loves you. This is not a sour this doesn't need to be a sour exit, and he's kind of turning it into a sour exit.
Yep. Exactly. He's making a bad situation worse.
Yeah.
And so
we got enough things to worry about over here. Like,
we
go
do.
to the playoffs and leave us to clean up our freaking mess.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly right. So the things for the Broncos are obviously not great right now. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough sledding right now. There's a few games here lately that they should have won. I mean, they could have won. Maybe not should have, but they could have won. And that's the hardest part about the NFL is looking back and thinking, well, this could have happened differently, or this could have happened differently, or what would have happened if this, and that's tough. We're in a difficult spot right now as a franchise where the team is playing well enough to win, maybe, but they're making enough mistakes that they don't deserve to win in a way. And so I think that the Broncos right now are they're at an important juncture. I mean, they've got plenty of time to think about the future. Got plenty of time to think about the draft. I think that this is the reason that this is so weird to me is that the future of the team looks really, I mean, other than the quarterback position right now with Case Keenum, we don't know what's going to happen there ultimately, but the future of the team elsewhere looks pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, our pass rushers with Chubb and Vaughn, and you've got Josie coming in and filling in for Brandon Marshall this past week. I love our young receivers, the running back duo. Got some pieces up on the offensive line that look pretty good, although with all the injuries, I mean, that's hard to. And who could sustain 3 injuries on your
Craven's back. We haven't even talked
Cravens.
about that with all the other drama that's going on. It was so good to see Cravens, to see Josie Jewell and Cravens. That was just, I don't know, man. I like the way that the potential of this defense. We've talked about it ad nauseum on here. We wanted everyone to be playing together more than they have by this point, especially in the offseason. But man, Cravens and Simmons and Chris Harris and Vaughn and Chubb and right now at least for the rest of the season, Shaq and Shane. And then Josie's coming alive in the middle, making clutch tackles, being in the right position, which is exactly what we expected of him. I like those pieces. I love how many of those guys get me excited to watch our defense. There's still a lot there. We can, with those pieces, a lot of them young guys still, we still have we can field a really good defense for a few years. We need to add to it. We need to nail another draft. We need to get some more free agents in there potentially. We definitely got to get some better corners outside of Chris Harris, but the defense has been playing really well at times this season, like really well.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that there's a lot there to build from. More so than other teams who have had to reset in recent years. I think the Broncos have quite a bit to build from, and that's a testament to Elway and the front office doing work this past year. The future has a good solid foundation in Denver. Unfortunately, we just don't know who the head coach and quarterback are going to be. That's the thing. But you can turn things around quickly in the NFL. I mean, there's a lot of teams that have gone worst to first recently, and it's because that's really what it takes. You get a quarterback and a head coach on the same page, and you have all those other pieces that can fall into place and help you win games. Like
we have all the other pieces.
Players. We do.
All the other pieces. We just need that quarterback coach combo.
Yep. And I think that that's going to come sooner than later. I don't know. I don't know if the Broncos we'll talk about this in a future episode. I don't know if they'll go quarterback. I think they'll try and add somebody this year, but I don't know if it'll be the guy that they try to add this year. But I think that they'll definitely get the coach piece, and then either this year or 2020, you're looking at the new QB. So
Yeah.
it'll be exciting to talk about. I mean, we'll have a lot to talk about on this show going forward, but man, this is a tough episode to have, and I think you did. I think you hit the nail on the head, kind of calling out DT on just being a little bit overly emotional. We've all had those moments where we felt like we were maybe betrayed by an organization or an
It doesn't feel good.
employer, or it doesn't feel good. No, it doesn't. But in those situations, you go vent to your mom or dad, talk
Yeah.
to
And a
talk to
lot of
somebody.
times you bite your tongue and you go off, and you don't want to choke it down and bury it down, because that stuff always finds its way to fester back up. But I know it's easy for me to say because no one's necessarily asking me a radio show right after a trauma, but
Right.
but at the same time, like, I'm not looking for these big public showy things. I don't know if necessarily DT was looking for that as much as he was just answering questions honestly. But I mean, you can definitely bite your tongue a bit more in a post-game press conference. When we just lost to you and your new team, we're all hurting from the fact that we're seeing you in another jersey, and you got to like make fun of us by saying that's what they do over there. It's like, dang, that's where I
Pretty
texted
petty.
you. I texted you yesterday after some of that and was like, dude, he's bitter.
Yeah.
He is bitter. This is all before today's explosion. Just based on those little comments, I was like, ooh, you're seeing through the cracks right now that this dude is a lot more upset than he's leading on about this situation. And then it all came out tonight.
Yep. That's exactly right. Well, there will definitely be brighter episodes ahead. But this was a necessary calling out. This was a necessary episode to just talk about some tough things. I mean, that's part of the journey.
DT, we got a lot of cloudiness. It seems like when it comes to those three, you got almost even 50-50 splits amongst our fan base right now.
Yep.
So maybe just trying to put some context in the situation. I'm not the football expert. I am pretty decent at drama and conflict and character, as I am a storyteller. I'm not the expert of human psychology or any of those things, but maybe just hopefully tonight you may have gained some perspective or seen things maybe a little bit abstractly, or just maybe considered some different angles on these things, because it's tough, man. This is some complicated, some messy situations, and it's hard for a fan to figure out where you feel about it when you don't know what's going on inside the building.
Yep. Exactly.
But hopefully we added and gave yourself some understanding. I know I feel just talking about this, I feel better about it, and me and you didn't really, and all this stuff broke, we saved it for the pod. So you're hearing all this is fresh. Sayre and I hadn't even told each other what we felt about the situation. You guys are hearing it first. So
yeah.
Thanks for at least letting us vent our feelings and our thoughts about the situation.
Yes. Yep. And I'm bummed to see him go, but this, in my opinion, kind of makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
In a sucky way.
I would say legitimately, unfortunately. I don't want this to be the case, but he's kind of confirming, why they gave Deshaun Hamilton snaps and pulled him out.
Right.
Like, they're going to be here, the guys that we left in, and you're not. You're going to be a cap casualty. And that was probably an unspoken or spoken in the private coaches' rooms truth that they knew that you just can't tell DT for obvious reasons. It hasn't happened yet. It isn't a for sure thing, but it's likely. And we've got the young kids. We just drafted 2 good wide receivers in this draft. That's inevitable that the 2 31-year-old guys have about a year or 2 left. That's the business of football. As I said earlier, and as many people have said, if Peyton Manning can get cut, get ready to get cut.
Exactly right.
But
Nobody is immune in the NFL.
nobody. And so let's just try to make the best of it, and let's try to leave with class. Let's try to not make a bad situation worse. And that's all we're saying, DT.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
Mm-hmm.
listening, you're not, and you're definitely not this far into it, even if you happen to pop it on. But let's just try to make the best of these situations. We're trying to do on the Knights of Den podcast here, trying to help everybody to see, either a more clear perspective and perception of the situation, and hopefully a more positive one. If there's a silver lining to be found, we here are trying to find it and trying to share that with you.
That's right. We will always find the silver lining. And again, it goes back to this. We are Denver Broncos fans first. We love Demaryius Thomas. As I tweeted out, a few days ago or early or late last week, I don't remember exactly when it was, but there's certain players who, what's the old cliche? It's not about the name on the back of the jersey, it's about the name on the front. But sometimes the name on the back of the jersey makes that name on the front mean a little bit more to you. And Demaryius Thomas was definitely one of those guys. He's definitely one of those guys that helped the legacy of the Denver Broncos and etched his name in the team's history, and was really a big part of some of the best years the franchise ever had, and certainly one of the most memorable plays the franchise ever had.
Right.
And so he definitely made the name Broncos more meaningful to you and I. I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I definitely think he did for me for sure.
Absolutely.
And so
it's not a light thing that we say he's our favorite Bronco wide receiver.
Right.
We talked about that last week. He's the best guy we've had. He's the jersey that I've worn the most as a Bronco fan now. I've nonstop been wearing my Demaryius jersey for 5-6 years, every single frickin' Sunday pretty much.
Yep.
So we this is all coming from love. This is all coming from love. We believe in him as a player, as a legacy contributor to this team, and we want the best for him as a person. Period.
Yep, absolutely. So we're looking forward to what the future holds. I mean, personally, I think that people are going to pretty quickly forget about this when Courtland Sutton has 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in a game, or
right.
Just this huge game, and Hamilton comes in and has himself a big game. I think people are going to pretty quickly and easily forget about it. Not forget about Demaryius, but forget about this piece of drama that's happening right now. Right now, things are just ugly. We're losing. The offense isn't playing well, but given some time, I think that this will be something we move past pretty quickly. But it's definitely a sour note to end the DT era on. It's a shame because they put the huge banners outside the stadium to honor him. They guaranteed him a spot in the Ring of Fame, talked about what a great Bronco he was. All those things, maybe those are just surface level compliments. Maybe he wasn't appreciated enough on a day-to-day basis, and that's part of John Elway and Vance Joseph being a leader. But I feel
it doesn't
like
seem like he's ever complained, or that we've seen any indication of that prior to this season.
Exactly.
After drafting his replacements, and holding on to him. I think we very well could have traded him in the offseason after getting those guys. But we thought we might have the pieces. I know you and I surely did. They thought we might have the pieces to make a frickin' run this year, and they wanted him to be a part of it. It was only once we hit the trade deadline and we're not fielding a playoff caliber team that you have to start thinking of the future. It's unfortunate. I've talked about this before on the pod, and I brought up somebody today. I traded DT to you in our dynasty league to jump up one spot and get Sutton.
Yep.
It's like, it's the business, man. He's been a staple in my dynasty team, and I had to make a similar decision that the Broncos made because, guys get old and the young kids come in. And we got to change some things at the Broncos, and saving $14 million, even just looking at that and nothing else makes that a good decision for us to figure out a way to bring in some other things when wide receiver is no longer a hole for us.
Right.
But there are other holes, as we are far too aware of. So it's time to freaking blow this thing up as much as we need to and retain the things that we need to retain and move forward into brighter days, man. I'm looking forward to them.
I am too. Well, I think that's a great note for us to end on. Because we are going to have brighter days. I don't know if the Broncos are going to. I mean, they can't lose this week. It's the bye week, so they're untouchable this week.
Right.
And then they come back and they go on the road for
we'll have a healthy Freeman.
Yeah, healthy Freeman.
Get back to that 1-2 punch with Lindsey and Freeman.
Yep.
We
get a chance to spoil the Chargers a little bit.
Ooh, that's going to be the silver lining. And I'm going to Week 17's Charger game in Denver.
There you go.
So I'm excited. Maybe we'll do a little double spoiling.
Spoiler.
It'd be nice to at least knock them down some pegs, one way or another, before it ends. I'm not looking forward to going to a Week 17 decimation at the hands of Phillip Rivers. I've seen that game. I've been there for one of those games, and it's not fun. So,
yeah, we don't want that.
No.
We don't want that.
No, let's hopefully, we get to watch a Lindsey Freeman beat down of the Chargers. That's what I'm hoping. I hope we figure out how to be a running team and dumping it off here and there to Sutton and doing what we can to have some exciting, entertaining moments, even if we got to lose as much as we can and get a freaking high draft pick. Let's just have some fun.
Let's do it.
Well, we thank you, everybody, for, like Sayre said, joining us on this difficult but necessary episode. We appreciate you spending your time with us, and we don't take it lightly for those of you that are listening. Whether it's one person or whether it's eventually a lot more than that, we appreciate, even if it's just one listener joining in and hanging out with us, like you're sitting on the couch with us as we talk about what we love about the Broncos and where this franchise is heading and what silver linings and good things there are to be found. So thank you so much. We hope you enjoy the rest of your week. We hope you enjoy the bye week. You don't have to go through any traumatizing losses. So that is a silver lining to end on. So thank you again from the bottom of our hearts. Tune in. We got more stuff coming. The future will be bright. It's always darkest before the dawn, but I promise you the dawn is coming. This is Brandon Keckler and Sayre Bedinger. And as always, God bless and go Broncos.